Okay, so this video is about Ahmad Ibn Hanbal himself. So somebody asked, this was written in 1995, pretty long time ago. Was Ahmad ibn Hanbal an anthropomorphist as alleged by the Salafis? Can you provide for me examples of the saying of Ahmad to show that he did not hold these views? Okay, so this is important. I'll just go over this part. Right, so this has been said since the early times, since someone forged a book called Kitab al-Sunnah, right? Sunnis reject this, but Salafis use this book, right, and put the name of Ahmed's son, Abdullah, on it, right? So his son didn't write the book according to our beliefs, but Salafis believe he did, and it has a lot of anthropomorphic stuff in it. So let's see what it says in it that's strange, okay? It contains some of the most hardcore anthropomorphism found anywhere. A hadith which says, when he sits on the kursi, a squeak is heard like the squeak of a new leather saddle, right? Or Allah wrote the Torah for Moses with his hand while leaning back on a rock on tablets of pearl, and the screech of the quill could be heard. There was no veil between him and him. The angels were created from the light of his two elbows and chest, right? So another issue is, right? Okay, and this is a quote in that book from a guy named Kharija. Does istiwa mean anything except sitting, right? And I'm pretty sure Ibn al-Qayyim uses this, right? Very, very important here. So that's how they come to that conclusion. With a chain of transmission containing a liar and an unidentifiable person, plus the text with its contradictions, you know, of the faith and yeah, that part we should already know. And it has 49 pages of vilification of Abu Hanifa and his school that is meticulously ascribed to major imams, such as that relating to Khusaj. I asked Ahmad ibn Hanbal, is a man rewarded for Allah by loathing Abu Hanifa and his colleagues? He said, yes, by Allah, right? And you actually find that in, remember, I don't know if you saw, but it was, you know how they say Al-Ashari wrote Al-Ibana, and we basically say he wrote the book, but not the one we have today. And one of the refutations of that is that in that book it says Abu Hanifa was a kafir and he believed that the Quran was created, right? So it seems like it's a Hanbali trend to have something hateful towards Abu Hanifa. We know that the schools, the Ahlul Ray and Ahlul Hadith, had disputes, which we could see why that would lead to people trying to demonize Abu Hanifa, right? And Ibn al-Qayyim also had a book with anthropomorphisms in it, and he uses hadith such as, honor the cow, for it has not lifted its head to the sky since the golden calf was worshipped out of shame before Allah. I mean, I don't know why you would put that one. And apparently it's forged, right? Okay, and let's keep going. I'm going to try to get to the more important parts of it. Let's see. Yeah, so for all these reasons, the be used utmost care must be used in accepting the tenets of faith, Ahmad ibn Hanbal or other imams, especially when made by anthropomorphists, whose concern is to create credibility for the ideas we're talking about. It seems to me that what has misled the Salafi revivers of these ideas in the Najd and elsewhere is their uncritical acceptance of the statements and chains of scripture found in the books of Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn al-Qayyim, which they continually cite to one another and rely on from whence they get the idea where the positions of the early Muslims, and companions. Uh, let's try to go down a bit. Okay, so this is interesting. Allah is established upon the throne, full stop, right? So, like, you just stop that, you don't go into it, you don't describe it. Their position is exemplified by Sufyan ibn Uyayna, very early scholar, who said the interpretation of everything that which Allah has described in his book is to recite it and remain silent about it, right? That's not what the Salafis do. They go into it. It resembles the position of Imam Shafi, who said, I believe that what was come from Allah was intended by Allah. I believe was come from the Messenger, as was intended. We have mentioned this school of tafweedh, or consigning knowledge to what is meant by Allah. And that's in the Quran, right? Chapter 3, verse 7, right? That's where they got it from, right? should be appreciated how far this position is from the understanding of the mutashabihat, right? The Quran literally uses the word, when the first Surah 3, verse 7 says, when you come across mutashabihat, the best way to deal with it is say only Allah knows the meaning. So tafweedh al-mana is in the Quran, right? An unapparent meaning, scriptural expressions about Allah as though they were literally meant literally. The Hanbali term, okay, so I'm just going to try to go down into it. So this is the most surprising part, right? Imam Ahmad was asked about the hadiths mentioning Allah's ascending, seeing Allah and placing his foot on hell, and he's replied, "We believe in them and consider them true, without how and without meaning. Bila kaifa wala mana." I mean, that's tafweedh al-mana. So why did the Salafis say tafweedh al-mana is an innovation? But it says it here that we believe in it without a meaning. Bila mana, very key. Uh, so let's see. How he is established upon the throne, how he wills, without any limit or any description that may be made by the describer, right? We shouldn't describe it. But that those hadiths with the squeaking and all that, that obviously is a description, right? Where it's trying to resemble it to a human, which is what we're not supposed to do. Allah Ahmad condemns those who said Allah has a body. The names of things are taken from the Sharia and the Arabic language. The language possessors have used for this word body is something that has head, height, breadth, thickness, construction, form, composition. Allah's beyond that, right? But you hear a lot of people say stuff that, like, I'm pretty sure I've read stuff in Ibn Taymiyyah's works where he describes something with these qualities, and you find that even in Ibn Uthaymeen's, they really try to avoid the word body, but they still describe what a body is. But here he is, Ahmed's explaining what a body is. Don't give it any of these qualities. But you find that, and Salafis do believe it's a form. We're not supposed to describe it. We're supposed to just leave it ambiguous, or you can go with a metaphor, right? This is important. This is one of the most important parts of the whole article right here. As you may know, the true architect of the Hanbali madhab was Ahmed, not Ahmed, right? Because he didn't write stuff down. At least I don't think he did. Yeah, who did not? Yeah, there it is. It says it right here. Who did not like to see any of his positions written down, but rather those were conveyed orally by his students, right? It is probably no exaggeration to say that the real founder of the Hanbali madhab was the Imam and Hadith master al-Jawzi, who recorded all the narratives from Imam Ahmad, distinguished the well-authenticated from the poorly authenticated, and organized them into the coherent body of fiqh. So the point is that this guy actually sat there and looked. He wrote a book, a famous book. It's called A Bunch of Hadiths That Are Fabricated, right? I'm pretty sure he wrote that book. And the point I'm trying to make is he actually went deep into these hadiths because, like I said earlier, that book that is claimed to be written by Ahmed's son, right? The kitab al-sunnah has like apparently 50% of it is fabricated or something like that. So he devoted his time to writing a good book called Rebuttal of the Insinuations of Anthropomorphism, right? Because he wanted to get rid of the bad hadiths. He realized, no, there is no anthropomorphism in the authentic hadith. One of the most significant points he makes is the principle of an ascription construction. It's very interesting because the anthropomorphists of his day, as well as Ibn Taymiyyah in the 7th century after the Hijrah, used many ascriptive constructions that appear in hadith. Okay, so this is an example. Allah's hand is above their hands. Here, Ibn Jawzi's principle means that we are not entitled to affirm on the basic Arabic words of the verse alone that Allah has a hand as an attribute of His entity. It could be that this Arabic expression is meant to emphasize the tremendousness of the offense of breaking this pact, as some scholars state, right, which is a type of ta'wil. Now remember him, this guy, Salafis reject him, and he also doesn't like Asharis, but not because of the ta'wil, but because he believes the Asharis believe that the Quran is created. They just say that not, the words of Allah, they say that the Quran, the physical Quran is created. That's what Ashari say, and he didn't like that position, so he was against them for that, right? So he's not exactly Ashari, right? But he didn't like that part of it, but not that wheel. He was okay with that. And remember, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, right? He went to the school of al-Jawzi, right? So that should show you how big of a scholar he was at the time of the Hanbalis. And I believe all the Hanbalis, no, they don't follow him. I think they follow more what Ibn Qudama wrote on Aqidah. The real Hanbalis, not the Salafis. And you know what? It's gonna go deep into this. I guess I'll. All right. We built the sky with hands. Verily, we outspread it. Al-Tabari describes the figurative. You know what? I don't want to make this video too long, so I'll just cut it here. If you want, send the. I'll send this in the description. You could read the rest if you want.